Welcome to the Knightline Podcast, your source for UCF football and former UCF player information. All right, here we are. This is Andrew Phegley, along with, to my left here, coming from the 1148 studios on episode number 16.
He gets it all in there in one swing. This is Troy Ondrizek.
All right, and we also have on the phone with us again, has been gracious enough to visit with us, is Brandon Helwig, publisher of UCFsports.com. Brandon.
Great to be here, fellas.
All right, you're there. That's good. We've started off, it's a plus already, so that's a good thing.
Never mind, I'll keep this kosher.
So this week we have Tulsa coming up on Friday night, and it has been kind of interesting the last couple times we've played Tulsa. They've kind of put it to us the last couple times, so we will see what happens. We're going to talk a lot about that. And
they're a different team now.
They are a different team now.
Completely different atmosphere, everything about that program.
Yeah. Brandon was also at UConn last week, and maybe you can give us a little bit of information about that as well.
Well, that was terrible. Just forget about that. Yeah. We'll talk about it if you want, but that was a miserable game.
Yeah, I just want to apologize for you being there. I'm sorry you had to go through that. You had to watch that game in that weather.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it on the CBS Sports Network replay. I don't think the television was an accurate representation of how horrible the weather was. It was not a pouring downpour like it was for that home game against Marshall a few years ago in 2011, but it consistently rained the entire game. It was consistent light rain. If you were in it a minute, maybe you're not soaked, but if you're in it 10 minutes, eventually you're going to get soaked. It was windy. It was cold with the wind chill and everything else. I think the feel-like temperatures were more like 35. I know the temperatures are low in the 40s. Well, it felt like it was almost freezing. You were wet. It was blowing. It was not a good feeling. And I know, all the players, Coach O'Leary, the weather's not an excuse, blah, blah, blah. But it was a factor. I don't think you can deny that it was not a factor. You play that game tomorrow in better weather, I'm sure UCF wins. But it is what it is. UCF had a lot of games the past few years where you feel like they had no business winning, then something happens where they do come back and win the game. The luck just finally ran out East Hartford a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was not a good showing by UCF at all. I'm glad that that's over with. Unfortunately, we did not come out of there with a win.
Dude, that's like a terrible divorce.
It was horrible.
Nothing good came from that game.
What, Brandon, what do you know about Tulsa? What are we looking forward to here?
In Tulsa, I think what you guys alluded to a minute ago, they're not really the same team. They're kind of a shell of their former self. You look at Tulsa when UCF joined Conference USA with Tulsa back in 2005. For a few years there, Tulsa, you really got to say, who was the team, like who was the team in Conference USA, in that era of 05 to 2012, and if maybe not, maybe it was Tulsa. I don't know if it was UCF. UCF did win the conference in 2007 and obviously 2010, but Tulsa won it that first year. Beat up UCF pretty good in the Florida Citrus Bowl, the inaugural Conference USA championship game. I think it was 50,000 plus in that stadium. That was kind of a fun thing, but everything but the game itself. And as UCF did beat them twice in 2007 regular season and at home for the conference championship. But ever since then, Tulsa's won every game. They beat UCF on the road in 2008. I think that was a Sunday night game, if I recall. And Tulsa had a nice little record, and I think they were in the top 20, top 25 at that point in time in 2008. And 2011, it was a Thursday night game. That was that season where every game was close, but UCF seemed to lose all of them. They lost that game late at home, and then you go back to that 2012. That was terrible. You played Tulsa twice in 3 weeks, both on the road. Those games kind of blur together for me. I was at both of them. And, the first game, the regular season, pretty much the winner would have had home field for the conference championship. So you lose that one. So you lose home field. You got to go back to the same place and you got beat again. You know, there were just some crazy plays. People kind of remember that punt return that was, everyone thought it was down, and they blew the whistle like the ball was dead, but then they kind of changed their mind. The Tulsa guy picked it up and ran it back for a touchdown. There were just some really crazy plays. But, yeah, and they had a great year that year. They went on and beat Iowa State pretty good in the Liberty Bowl after winning Conference USA, but they've been kind of on the downfall last year and continuing into this year. You know, I guess they were 1-7 going into SMU last week. You know, you never even knows anything about SMU. I mean, I hate to say that with UCF because you maybe could have made the joke about UConn a couple weeks ago, but you would think that, you know, that's pretty much the team you can circle a W on, you know, before you play that game. So they did beat SMU to get their second win, but other than that, maybe they have some good passing stats, but overall, not a good team this year.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes it's those teams that we don't do the best on because obviously we didn't do too well last week with UConn. So
it's playing down to the level of our competition.
Absolutely. So
yeah, thanks for that depressing recap of all our losses to Tulsa, Brandon. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I just was thinking about that today. Like, they kind of owned UCF. I mean, you know, and you talk to some of the guys today, some of the players. You know, all those seniors were here in 2011, so all they know are losses to Tulsa. You know, they're 0-3 against Tulsa, and, you know, they're going to be the most winningest senior class in UCF history, yet they haven't never beaten Tulsa. So this is an opportunity that you get the sense that they're excited for the opportunity, if nothing else, than to just say, you know, they got back at Tulsa a little bit. So I expect them to be fired up, and, you know, it's a night game. Which I think bodes well for UCF. It was an interesting stat I thought about the other day after the UConn game. Pretty much all of the losses over the past 3 years have all been games that were played. They were all day games. Either they started noon or earlier, or the other one would have been the game in Dublin, which was a 1:30 Dublin start. You know, obviously before 12 here in these, because they've all been day games. So I think it's like you said, something like 23 straight night games they won. Of games starting after 4 p.m. It's some crazy stats. So maybe that will also be working in their favor on Friday night.
Hey, Brandon, you're at the practices. What time do they normally practice on any given day?
I'm not at the practices. I show up at the end, and then you wait to do the interviews. You're not really allowed to watch practice, but they practice in the morning. They've done it for years. They're on the field for usually about 10 to 12. So, you know, I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's any correlation. Just like that, I like that Jersey stat I pulled out a few weeks ago. You know, tracking what UCF's record in the black jersey. I don't really know if there's really any reason for it. It's just kind of fun to go back and look at it. You know, I know there's been some occasions, like, you know, UCF will play a noon game, just like that Tulane game. You know, that was a win. That would just, you know, you play a noon game, it's hot, the stadium isn't packed, people don't like coming to noon games, attendance suffers. It's one of those, I don't know, just one of those things. I don't know if there's really anything to it, but I think if UCF, at least the players and administration could have it there, when they'd probably play every game at night and every home game wearing black. But then again, it probably really doesn't matter in regards to wins and losses.
And it actually looks like, speaking of game times, it looks like the SMU game was not announced today like we were all expecting it to be, and that's going to be next week, I believe, or on Saturday, I guess they're going to tell us, right?
Yeah, they do that with other conferences, so it's not like the first time that's happened. I think it's the first time that's happened, really, with the American. It's just kind of odd. I mean, there's a bunch of games that week, and none of them are terribly attractive. And, you know, I don't know if this week's results, other than maybe they wanted to see East Carolina and Cincinnati this week play on a Thursday night, maybe seeing, you know, whichever one of those teams wins maybe might impact their decisions. I'm kind of surprised they did that. I mean, there's a lot of games that Saturday, so everyone wants to know, are we playing at noon? Is it a night game? You know, I don't know. I mean, there's enough games there that they can't all be at noon. I know that seems to be the designated time slot for a lot of these games, but I think there's 5 games that Saturday. There's a CBS Sports Network, so I think, you know, they get one game a week. Their slot's going to be 8 p.m., so I think it must be a week. I'm not sure what it is week to week, but how it goes is ESPN usually has the first pick, and there are other weeks where CBS Sports Network has the first pick. So when CBS Sports Network selected the UCF Temple game on October 25th. That was because they had the first pick, and they definitely wanted UCF. But I do believe it goes the other way.
I think that we should maybe put something into legislation for next year to outlaw games at noon in Florida. Maybe
legislation.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah,
to outlaw games.
I really hope
noon.
It's not noon because it's going to be senior
unless
day,
they're on national television.
Yeah, well, that game's going to be senior day. You have a lot of seniors that have meant a lot to this program, and it's just sad when there's been other senior days and noon and whatnot, and how people don't make an effort to get into the stadium 20 minutes early. You guys have been around and probably seen the same thing for years. That you just hope for that. Also, for that sake, it's not. I think you have a better chance of getting people in there if it's a later start than a noon start, because that's always the sad thing is when you see those seniors come out, and I don't even know, there's 5,000 people in the stands sometimes when that ceremony begins.
Yeah, 5,000 is a bit generous. I mean, every sporting event, Orlando, our fan bases can't show up on time, let alone early, and it's a bit of a shame. And that's part of the tradition of college football, showing up early in the game, running through some of the traditions that the band has and other things with the program. That, being a young program, we seem to miss that from time to time. But focusing, as you talked about, these seniors who have yet to win against Tulsa, we lacked focus against UConn. There's under no circumstance should we have lost that game. So are we going to see a better performance from these kids? Can we expect them to come out with some vigor and want to, I guess, revenge that piss-poor performance that they had against UConn? I've heard rumblings of discontent with coaching staff. Have we lost these players? Do they lack some of the toughness, the mentality they need to win?
Yeah, I don't know about that. When you look at kind of how the season's gone, it's kind of been good one game, down the next, then up again. And I guess if you go by that measure, I'm looking at the schedule right here. It's pretty much gone like that. Let's just kind of forget about those first three games, Penn State, Missouri, Bethune-Cookman. Ever since conference play started, I know BYU was there. Houston was a win, but it was kind of a bad performance. At least offensively, barely generated all that many yards. We're really lucky to win that game. Still won it. Then, BYU the next week, I think was a pretty good performance. Things improved, and then people thought it was going to be rolling the next week against Tulane. Now it's still a win. But, that was the week O'Leary's he's like, lives are going to change. That was lackadaisical garbage. He was really angry with the full pad practices after that. And, probably thought it worked because, that Temple game might have been UCF's best overall game of the season, that 34-14 win. And then they followed that up with another subpar game, except this time the subpar game, it did end up being a loss, that being at UConn on November 1st. So if you go by that measure, UCF is due to have one of those better games this week, particularly with Justin Holman. That's kind of as the team goes. Justin Holman, he's up one game. He's looking really good, making NFL-type throws, limiting mistakes, and then he comes out and throws 4 interceptions against UConn. So you don't know which Justin Holman is going to show up either. So that's the other interesting thing, to see how he bounces back after a subpar game. And it didn't happen anyway. There was a couple games where you thought maybe Nick Patty was going to get in there.
I was actually shocked. I was shocked that O'Leary did not put him in there in the UConn game, personally.
He was warming up, from what I understand.
Everyone was trying to warm up.
That's a good one. I think he was getting ready to go in. I think when UConn scored their last touchdown, I think they figured the lead was so big at that point, they needed to go more of a higher, like a 2-minute type offense out there, and you didn't have trust that Patty could employ that kind of offense, so they stuck with Holman. And, they did make a run of it. Obviously, was driving for the potentially game-time touchdown drive had they gotten the 2-point conversion, but that kind of fell by the wayside with the offensive pass interference to pick.
What was the deal with the heaters on the sideline?
We're going with the heater comment.
From what I understand, and I was not, I guess there was some talk on the TV broadcast from the sideline reporter. I'm not really sure what she said. I noticed them on early in the game. I didn't really go over. I was shooting pictures on the field. I don't know how much of a difference they really made, to be honest. I don't know if they did or they didn't. And then later in the game, I guess it was the third quarter, I noticed they were off, and I didn't really know why. Maybe they broke. I don't know. And then later on in the game, I noticed they were on again, and then I'm not really sure what happened. Later, in asking around, because I guess it was sort of controversial after the game, I guess someone there was a comment on the TV broadcast how O'Leary turned off the heaters. I'm not really sure what was said, but from what I understand is the heaters were on in the first half, and I believe, and this is just me speculating, I know it has asked O'Leary specifically why he did this. My speculation is that he became annoyed with the players wanting to huddle around the heaters. Every time I was looking at the heaters, and I'm saying the backup long snapper, the backup kickers, the backup punter, the guys that aren't really going to play. I'm seeing Pete DeNovo. I'm seeing all these guys huddled around the heaters, kind of maybe taking up space from the players who are actually playing. I think maybe O'Leary got annoyed by that. That's just my personal opinion on it, because in the third quarter, he told the UCF trainers to unplug the heaters and turn them off for the third quarter. And I know that was the third quarter that the game sort of got out of hand. It was kind of trending that way, and it did in the third quarter. At some point, O'Leary kind of reconsidered his decision, and he had him turn back on for the fourth quarter. So
I know
it's one of those things. Yeah, like I said, that's my personal opinion, because he gets annoyed. Like he kicked the scout team off the field. Like I think he thought they were like getting in the way of one of those games UCF had, and then the next game he wouldn't allow him to be on the sideline. It's one of those things. I think he just got annoyed by something, and that's what happened. Whether or not that made the difference in the game, I don't know. I don't know if that made a difference or not, but that's basically what I know about Heatergate.
Yeah, Heatergate. That's what they were calling it. The whole thing was kind of funny, actually, I thought. So
he's just he's like you, but older.
Oh, thanks.
He's a curmudgeon.
Thanks. Speaking of being a curmudgeon, do you think, I know it has been discussed a little bit recently with George O'Leary and, on the boards especially, after these kind of games, people sometimes call for his head or say, he's had a couple bad days, maybe it's time to go. Do you think that maybe he's lost a little bit of his discipline with these players? Do you think that it's getting away from him a little bit? Because these players do not play like the last few years of teams. And
I'm trying to put a finger on that, and I think there's a couple different ways to kind of look at everything. It's really hard to say. After you have a season like you had last year, it's really hard to duplicate that. And the fact that you have a new quarterback and you lost the first game in such a heartbreaking way, and I'm sure there was players questioning. You had one quarterback start, although we can talk about that. We really don't need to. But there's a reason that Pete DeNovo is named starter and not just at home. And don't get me wrong, it's not like the coaching staff was trying to make it, go out of their way to make a bad decision. Holman just was awful. I mean, he really was in his preseason practices. So going back and you lose those games early, and you follow it up with playing Missouri, and that one got out of hand and everything. It's been hard to kind of get back on track. And I don't know as far as O'Leary's not a warm and fuzzy players coach. So, when people aren't playing and that kind of thing, with losing, you're going to get people grumbling and complaining and stuff like that. That might be some things you were referring to. It's just kind of funny. O'Leary's an old school guy. Maybe players have changed in their mindset with, maybe parents are more, see more helicopter parents these days. Social media, everything's kind of focused on individuals. He kind of went on a funny rant today. I'm not really sure what his point was, but he was trying to make a point where he was equating football to video game football. Dropped a Madden reference, and you can't hit reset. You have a bad game, you have a bad play. If you're playing a video game, you could just start over. It doesn't work like that in real football. And he kind of gave a long-winded kind of speech about that, where I don't know, maybe he's having trouble sometimes with some of these guys, getting through to him. Well, I'm not really sure. As far as it's always amazing after a loss when you see people come out of the woodwork. O'Leary's awful. He needs to be fired. This and that. They won the Fiesta Bowl last year, and UCF was just losing their third game this year. It's one of those things that's amazing. After the game, I went to a restaurant in Hartford, and a couple of the UConn players came in I don't know if anyone's familiar with Texas Roadhouse. You always got to wait. There's a little waiting area. You know, you eat those peanuts and smash them on the floor. Well, a couple of guys came in. You could tell they're players. They're wearing those tracksuits, say UConn football. So I started talking to one of them. I didn't know if he was a starter or walk-on. I really had no idea. And so we started talking. I had my laptop out, so I'm trying to make a couple posts and trying to do a couple things before I got seated. And I was talking to him. It turns out he was the leading tackler. Graham Stewart. He was from Connecticut. He actually signed with Florida. He was a really highly rated recruit in the class of 2011. Signed with Urban Meyer, played there for a year, but then just, I'm not sure what happened. Just wanted to come back home. Got some injury issues and everything. So I was talking to him, and I was kind of looking at the message board. He kind of made a notice because he was kind of looking to see what I was doing because I had some pictures up, and we were talking about the game and stuff like that. He kind of laughed where he saw someone posted on the board suggesting that O'Leary be fired. He's like, "What's wrong with that guy?" He's like, O'Leary just won a Fiesta Bowl. Isn't he a great coach? He's won a lot of football games for UCF. I'm like, yeah. Well, that's just how fans are. It doesn't matter on Twitter, message boards. It's just we've gotten to that way. When you lose a game, you shouldn't lose. People just kind of go off the handle a little bit. But I don't know how I got talking about that.
I'll finish it up real quick.
But I just sit here rambling. But that's kind of my cool story, bro, from Hartford the other week.
Touching on this, us as UCF fans, we have it pretty good. Just peruse the Tulsa boards a little bit. I was doing that last week, and they have the same gripes about Bill Blankenship, that he refuses to adjust his game plan. Then on first down, they do a draw play up the middle. Second down, draw play up the middle. Third and long, they try to chuck it with Evans. Over and over again, they talk about how he's cuddly like a porcupine, about the different quirks he has, and we have these same complaints about George O'Leary, but we have wins. We have a winning record. We have a BCS bowl game victory. We've made strides on the field. The product on the field significantly better than what Tulsa has. People seem to, whole society of entitlement. I'm not the world's biggest George O'Leary fan, but I'm a bigger fan of him than it seems to be a very vocal but small minority of our fan base. I don't want him fired. I'm sure he's not cuddly, but sometimes these kids need that. Their football coaches in Pop Warner and in high school and all told them how great they were, never really, had to work too hard for things, and some of our fan base expect the same thing. We have it pretty good with George O'Leary.
We do. There are some other coaches out there, though, that it's kind of like, okay, I went to the University of Kansas, and most people know, if you follow college football at all, what's gone on there this year as far as Charlie Weiss. Some of these coaches are not people at all.
Or like Charlie Weiss, they're not good coaches.
Well, no, he's a great coach. He did a wonderful job in the NFL, but he doesn't do good in college because maybe he doesn't see eye to eye with any of the kids.
Tom Brady did a wonderful job for him in the NFL.
But Charlie Weiss was calling the plays for not only Tom Brady, but the Chiefs for the year and everything else.
They were terrible then too.
Well, they weren't terrible, actually. But
then why'd they fire him? Charlie Weiss is
They didn't
overrated.
fire him, actually. He quit, and he went to Florida. Mm-hmm. That's where. Okay, but anyway.
That's a demotion.
So now Kansas has a new coach, which was their offensive coordinator, and all of a sudden these kids are playing like, they're 10 times better than they were playing for Charlie Weiss. And I don't know. I just think
that leads me to my previous statement of Charlie Weiss isn't a good coach.
Okay. Well, I'm saying he's not a people person. I definitely believe that he is a good football coach, but maybe not a people person. So maybe these older guys that have been around for a while are having trouble identifying with the kids. That's what I'm saying. So, I don't know.
They also be, a 2-7 Iowa State team, or what was it? I don't know if they wouldn't beat, TCU or Baylor or somebody in Kansas. Well, the same argument can be made when you look at Florida and the Georgia game. Where was this Florida offense? Where was this offensive line? Where was this running game before? It seems like they just didn't want to play. Maybe it's not the coach. It's the
actually,
they didn't want to play for Jeff Driscoll. They put in the other guy. He didn't even really throw the ball in that game, and all of a sudden they look like a team that could win the division. So I don't know why it is sometimes. It's not just coaches. Sometimes it's quarterbacks have that difference.
Okay, and that'll be the last time we ever mention the Gators on this podcast.
It's not true, but Andrew does have a personal hate against Florida.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, I'll let you have that one, Brandon.
All right. Tulsa, who we are expecting a solid win against this coming Friday. They have a respectable, passing attack because they're forced into a situation where they have to pass all the time. Their first game of the season against Tulane was, not a bad overtime victory. It was an entertaining game to watch. And then they haven't done anything entertaining since, and they beat in the pillow fight of the week SMU last week. What do you expect from them? Are there any point of their game that is dangerous? I didn't think UConn was going to give us a battle. I had us winning by 35 points, but we saw how that went. So what can Tulsa do?
Then UConn goes and wins the Army, one of the worst teams in college football as well this past weekend. So you were hoping maybe UConn was improving and they were going to show that maybe this is a better football team than people were giving them credit for. So never mind about UConn, but with Tulsa, they lost 7 in a row after that Tulane game that they easily could have lost. I think Tulane had an early lead. I remember watching that one. It was, I think, the opening Thursday night, and they came back and tied that game to force overtime. But they got absolutely, they got annihilated by Oklahoma. But whatever, Oklahoma was like top 5 at the time. But then they got annihilated on the road at FAU. They lost 50-21. So, ever since I'm like, man, this is, and FAU's not having a great year either.
No.
What O'Leary talked about today, and really the only thing he talked about Tulsa, he didn't talk about their defense at all. He talked about their passing offense. He likes their quarterback. He has the ability to kind of move around and kind of keep plays alive with his feet. And then obviously alluded to the 2 wide receivers. They have one of them, what's his name? Kevin Lucas leads the American in receptions and yards. And the other one is Kiaris Garrett. Garrett, I think, has been around for a couple of years now. I think UCF saw him in 2012. He's a big target. I think he's a 6'3", 6'4" kind of guy. They kind of, the deep balls let him go and make a play. These are the guys that O'Leary talked about a lot today in the press conference. You can tell he's the most concerned about their passing game. Some of the games, the UCF secondary didn't have a great game against UConn. Obviously, the pass interference calls speak for themselves. But, Jordan Ondrizek's kind of let a play get behind him, let a one touchdown. There's one of those games where the UCF secondary is going to have to play a good game and bounce back from a subpar effort against UConn.
That's perfect. I actually have that clip of George O'Leary talking about
the wide receiving situation and what to expect from Tulsa.
Well, exactly. That's what Brandon asked him today during his press conference. So I'm going to play that real quick.
Tulsa, I think, runs the ball, throws the ball well. Probably has 2 of the better receivers in the conference as far as what I see. 2 Lucas and 1 Garrison. I think they're very, very good. Plus a quarterback that keeps the ball alive. But, and I think he's very tricky, can run it, can throw it. And a defense that makes plays. They've sort of gotten themselves in trouble into the fourth quarter. They've been in a lot of these games, some games not, same as ourselves. But I think for the most part, they got talented people out there.
All right, so that's what O'Leary had to say today about Tulsa.
Actually, touching on both the wide receivers, Garrison and Lucas, they do a good job of adjusting to the passes because Evans isn't exactly the most accurate quarterback. Lucas particularly does pretty good at coming. Evans kind of short throws some of his long balls, and he does a good job adjusting to the ball and getting to the high point before the defensive backs. And a lot of passes are behind Garrison. He has quite a bit of agility, especially when he's doing the crossing patterns or posts, to be able to reach behind him and snag him. So with that and how ball hawkish our secondary can be, especially Jacoby Glenn, will give us situations for a few turnovers, which we desperately need because we most assuredly lost that turnover battle against UConn, and therefore we lost the game. So in watching Tulsa, they're going to give us an opportunity to win. It's as long as we don't literally gift the game back to them.
I hope that's how it turns out. I think that we always, like we were talking about earlier, we play better after these losses that are horrible. So
it's about getting ourselves in a rhythm early. I've said it a few times. I really, truly believe that Justin Holman's a rhythm quarterback, and you get him involved early, then he keeps the focus throughout the game. But if you kind of negate him or mitigate some of his effectiveness early, then you completely get him out of the mindset. And if he has a bit too much pressure when he tries to win the game himself, then he just falls apart.
Yep, you're right. Brandon, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
all
right. Just
listening to what you guys are saying.
Just
good points made by both.
Just checking.
It's all right. All right, so what does UCF do when they have a bye week? The coaches get sent out to high schools to focus on a little recruiting, and we also have a signing day tomorrow. Not for football, of course.
Yeah,
not tomorrow, Wednesday. When I learn what day of the week it is, I'll tell you we have a signing day Wednesday.
It is Monday.
Sunday's Wednesday. Yeah. That's some big news for particularly for the men's basketball program. I think Donnie Jones has an excellent recruiting class lined up. The most latest commitment being Taco Fall.
That man is huge.
The big 7'6" center from Liberty Christian up north of here in Tavares. There was a lot of interesting things that happened in his recruitment. A lot of people thought he was going to Georgia Tech. There was a lot of pressure on him to go there, where they have an assistant coach that's from his home country, putting a lot of pressure. Georgetown was in the mix, a lot of schools, but he just moved to United States a couple of years ago. I think he's comfortable here in Florida. He's got a great relationship with his host family. He's got a network of friends that he's developed here, and he really likes Donnie Jones, the coaching staff, the players on this team, and so I think he felt more comfortable. He just wanted to go to UCF. Maybe that's a decision that maybe AAU coaches and people don't always appreciate, but he wants to be a Knight, so he's going to have his signing day ceremony on Wednesday, just as the other ones are.
Very
every
happy to
recruit, every recruit is from Florida. You got Chad Brown, power forward from Deltona, Chance McSpadden, the point guard from Winter Haven, and you've got Kingsley Effiani, who played at University High School but is now at Daytona State College. He's kind of a scoring wing, kind of very dynamic player. So things are looking up. I know there's been some sanctions and scholarship reductions and postseason ban a couple years ago, and some questions about Donnie and what he could do, but I think he's at least on paper anyway, has a very good recruiting class coming in. I think one that can be kind of the building blocks, including the freshmen this year.
Yeah, we have some talented freshmen that showed up good against Flagler.
BJ Taylor, scored 23 points the other night. It was an exhibition game, but so building blocks are there, in my opinion, to finally start to build a team that can contend in the American.
We are going to talk quite a bit about basketball coming up here on the UCF Knightline Podcast. We've decided that we are going to take on basketball as well. So
you're going to have to forgive us. We are average-sized white guys, so basketball isn't exactly our first nature sport.
Yeah, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to get reporting and give some information about UCF.
Our English is digressing.
Some information about UCF basketball as well. I think it's an upcoming team for sure.
It's going to be entertaining. This incoming freshman class and what we have, like Brandon was talking about on signing day for Wednesday, really leaves a lot, to follow the next coming years. Donnie Jones, after the sanctions and everything, we have hope and excitement on the horizon.
Yeah, I think the next couple of years are going to be pretty exciting. So we are going to.
Really good. Yeah, just saying, that's a really good point. I mean, you really didn't feel that way watching the team play the last couple of years. Just kind of seeing the guys kind of fight to get points, and so Isaiah Saya. I don't know. There wasn't a good feeling that the team was turned the corner. I think I'm not sure what kind of season is in store this year. They've got a very friendly non-conference schedule, built to get wins and build confidence. But I think when you see the talent they're bringing in and the guys they're poised to sign on Wednesday, I think you can be optimistic again about the future of UCF basketball.
Yeah, I think it'll be exciting, and I'm looking forward to covering that this year.
Yeah, it's the most excitement since the Taylor turnover to Jordan and Keith Clanton times. That's the last time I was pretty amped up about the program.
Brandon, I know that you have prior commitments and you needed to get going. So
Yeah, if you want to talk for a couple more minutes, I'm good.
Oh, okay.
Good. I don't know how much longer you want to get going. But,
yeah.
All right, we'll talk about that. Okay.
Just let us know.
Big recruiting needs for UCF. I know the one position where we graduate, 3 seniors leadership and then possibly Rashad Perriman going wide receiver. How are we looking on being able to replenish the stock for wide receiver talent? And I know our top wide receiver recruit is about the softest commit we have, and apparently some P5 program just came in to try to take him away.
Yeah, you're speaking of Cameron Stewart. He was UCF's first commitment back in April. Was it March? It was either April or March. He committed to UCF. And, I don't think it's really a surprise that he's looking around. I remember when he committed to UCF, back when he did, he said he was going to take his visits. He was going to go to camps at other schools and try to maybe earn an offer. I know he went to a South Carolina camp and some other places. So I'm not particularly surprised. As you said, Nebraska came forward a week ago and offered him a scholarship, and he's actually scheduled his official visit to go there a week from this coming Saturday. So it's one of those things, where UCF hold on to him. It kind of makes people a little bit nervous. So, we'll see what happens. I mean, if you look at the wide receiver, position, as you said, you graduate all those guys. You've got Rashad Perriman, who could very well go pro if he gets positive feedback from the NFL advisory board. So you could be in a situation where the only receivers you've got coming back are Jordan Akins, who doesn't play a lot. You've got Taylor Odom, who doesn't play at all. And you've got a guy who has earned rave reviews on the scout team, but then again hasn't played. His redshirting is Traquan Smith. So those could be the only guys that are here right now that could be coming back to be scholarship wide receivers next year. So anyone that UCF signs should have a great opportunity to see a lot of action in their true freshman years. But usually if you're a receiver, sign me up for that. They want to start playing. So you would think UCF would be able to sign some decent guys. They had a kid from South Carolina, Taven Richardson. I guess you could call him one of their top targets. He took his official visit a couple weeks back for the Temple game, and he's always spoken highly of UCF. But he did say UCF right now is his number 2 school. His number 1 school is Kentucky. Now, I'm not really sure if Kentucky necessarily has room for him, or when it's said and done, he'll be able to have room to be part of their class. So he could be a guy that if UCF is number 2, he could fall to UCF. But he's not ready to commit to UCF quite yet because he's liking Kentucky.
It's that
but
SEC
he's
competition.
Supposed to visit. He hasn't visited there yet. He's supposed to visit both Louisville and Kentucky, I believe, late November, early December timeframe.
And Cameron Stewart is our only wide receiver that's on the list as far as commitments right now. So that's, kind of...
And they're just offering guys. I mean, it's kind of, last week it came out, there's a couple of receivers out of Texas that just got offers out of the blue. One of them is a commitment to Illinois. The other guy is uncommitted. I did speak to this player.
Was he the one from Gainesville?
Darian Wilson, Greenville. Yeah, Darian, I'm not quite sure how he is. I think he has an apostrophe in his name. He hadn't heard from, he's never been talked to by UCF at all. And then UCF comes by his high school, and then the next day he gets an offer. So, UCF obviously kind of heard about him. Maybe they did some research online on the internet, saw he was an uncommitted receiver, liked his senior highlight film. That sort of seems what happened with him. And they've invited him to take an official visit. He would like to. Maybe it looks like UCF is trying to line up official visitors for one of those first weekends of December, and he could potentially be one of those guys. So it'll be interesting to see. I feel like with UCF, I think there's kind of a lot working against them in terms of getting quality early commitments. That Power 5 thing just kind of gets beating guys' heads constantly, and I think you're losing recruits to Wake Forest and schools that, if you kind of look at it, not to take anything away from these schools, they're great schools. But
I'll take something away from them. You don't want to go play football there.
Right. As far as football, I don't think anyone would argue that UCF is a better place better chance of success to win as opposed to Wake Forest. So they kind of had some lots on some recruiting battles early on, but I think recruiting it always kind of slows down during the regular season. But now that the high school season is over, except for the guys in the playoffs, teams will be eliminated every week here until you kind of get into it. Championship run here in December, so things will start to crank up again with recruiting. I'm sure they'll host some more official visitors in December. We'll probably hear some more names. And what I always kind of have with UCF, there'll be guys committed to other schools that kind of enter the picture. Maybe they're not sure about where they committed. Maybe there's a coaching change at the place they've committed to. And I'm sure there'll be some new names on the radar in pretty short order.
Well, December and January should always be UCF's top months for recruiting. Because when say you're going to go visit Connecticut or you're at Ohio State and it's cold as hell, and then you come down to Florida and it's 71 degrees in December, oh man, that's got to make a difference to some of these kids.
You would think that UCF's had some success and northern guys who live in it, actually wanting to come south and play. I know they're recruiting New York, New Jersey, a little bit in Pennsylvania.
I miss our Canada days with Keith Shalogan and them.
Yeah, there you go, Keith Shalogan. Yeah, he was quite the player. It was a UCF Boise State battle back in the day for Keith Shalogan. That's a good one. But some of the guys. It's kind of funny when you talk to guys who are maybe from up north and they come to Florida. It's like, oh man, this is paradise. Look at these palm trees, there's swimming pools, people wearing shorts. Kind of you take that for granted when you live in Florida. So kid comes up from Miami to visit, he's like, yeah, this is whatever. It's no different than any place I've been living. But I think people might appreciate it more when they live up north the rest of the year.
Yeah, speaking of Canada, I know that they're
where are you going with
this?
The
CFL thing is still going on. The Grey Cup will be awarded at some point soon. Do you guys have any information of what our guys did in the NFL and the CFL this week
Quincy
at all?
McDuffie and them?
Yeah. Anybody?
Quincy hasn't been getting a lot of playing time with Hamilton lately.
No.
Once in a while, Kamal Ishmael did not lead the Falcons in tackling.
Yeah, did Brandon Marshall play on...
Yeah, he also said his team isn't very good. That was a bad game.
Yeah, he hasn't had the greatest year.
Well,
Chicago
hasn't had the greatest year. They're soft.
What about Bruce? Did Bruce get to? I'm sure he played. So I guess we don't.
I didn't see him on the stat sheet.
He doesn't play the position where he gets in that stat sheet.
Yeah.
The only thing I know about Bruce is the pictures he posted with his fiance. So I can't look at his stats.
And she is very popular with the UCF fans and alumni.
Yeah, she definitely is.
Latavius Murray got 2 carries for 4 yards and 1 catch for 7 yards. I have him on my fantasy bench, just hoping that they'll give the kid a chance. It's my homer pick, and that was the most touches he's had in a while, but still nothing.
I'm so bummed about that too because I really wanted
their
him
season's done. It's over. McFadden and Jones-Drew aren't going to do anything. Why not give this kid a chance as second-year player? Let's see what you have. Let's see if you get positive yardage because the rest of your offense. Derek Carr's actually done a pretty solid job. I've been impressed with what he's done, and Mettenberger didn't do too bad in Tennessee. But Blake yesterday,
well, he only threw 1 interception.
Yeah, that's.
I guess that's his stat he leads the NFL in interceptions. It's very unfortunate. I hate to see this happen to him. But I guess we all...
How many of those have been in pick 6, though? Does he also lead the NFL in pick 6 this term?
Probably.
He at one point, I thought he was going to try to break... who's that guy for Matt Schaub's record for pick 6s?
Oh, man. It's unfortunate. And, we kind of all knew that this was going to happen if he got put in there this year when we all wanted to see him play and we were all excited.
I'm still excited to see him play.
I am too, but I feel bad for the guy because, it kind of sucks.
Because all I expect on Sundays is football to watch in England is going to be Tottenham. And they got beat by Stoke City. So I had no desire to turn on the tube to see anyone else in England play football.
Yeah.
Yesterday, even though I have the NFL Red Zone, so it goes back and forth. But there weren't a lot of Red Zone opportunities for Jacksonville, so you didn't really get to see much.
Yeah, Denard I think had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
correct?
are you
2
adopting him as
you know,
like a UCF guy?
I am, actually, because I like him. And we're just talking about Jacksonville in general. They're one of the local teams, kind of. Close.
Stinky Duval County.
Yeah, but, would you rather talk about Jacksonville or the Bucks?
Yeah, you've got a point.
I would rather talk about Jacksonville.
Anything in Tampa just aggravates me.
Yeah, so, too close.
And I know a lot of our alumni in Tampa, and I don't know how they do it. I mean, St. Pete and Clearwater's nice.
I like Madeira over there.
That's not bad
That's where I normally go for my little
where the
in-state
Bitcoin Beach Bash is going to be this year.
Absolutely. Brandon
is going to be one of 18
people
there.
Did you go to the last Bitcoin? I mean, it wasn't Bitcoin then, but the St. Pete Beach Blast.
No, I went to the one in 2009.
Yeah, that would
when
be the last one.
Played Rutgers.
No.
Yeah, I went in 2009. I went a few days before the game. I'm like, I'm not doing that again. It's only like 2 hours away. I think I came up the day of the game, stayed the night, and that's all I did for the last game. But, man, it's one of those things where, you look at the bowl situation, things it's a little bit more clear with who will be eligible for what conferences, and with the way it stands, there's not really a great champion. Even if UCF goes and wins out and wins a championship, I don't know if they probably still go to the Bitcoin Bowl. I mean, it's probably if you had to make a pick, I mean, it's probably 80% chance of that. So whether you're 6-6 or potentially 9-3, I don't know if it makes a difference. You're probably going to go to that Bitcoin Bowl, which may not have an ACC team. I mean, it's effectively the ACC number 11. Right now, because, you got a team in the playoff with Florida State and another ACC team, going to the Orange Bowl, and you throw Notre Dame in there, and it gets bumped all the way down to, like, number 11, and they may not qualify enough teams. So I know one of the projections yesterday I saw on CBS Sports.com had UCF versus Akron in the Bitcoin Bowl, which
that's
I know
horrible.
Been fanned into a frenzy.
That's absolutely horrible.
They'll have 4 fans travel. And a little side, how depressing is that arguably the top bowl for the American is the 11th bowl for the ACC, the basketball conference.
Yeah, I did probably the top bowl might be the Military Bowl, because the Military Bowl, I believe, gets the ACC team in front of the Bitcoin. I think maybe they get. It's really. I think the Bitcoin's really ACC number 10. It's just when you have another team in the playoffs, that kind of takes steam away. I think the Military Bowl gets a team before the Bitcoin Bowl does. And I believe the Military Bowl has an ACC team every year, where I believe it's going to alternate years. Like next year, it would be a Conference USA team in the Bitcoin Bowl.
Well, that's better than a MAC team. I mean, Akron.
Oh, yeah.
But if they don't qualify, it's to an at-large situation. I mean, that's what happened when UCF played Ball State a couple years ago. It's not a MAC Bowl game, but back then, I guess it was the Big East.
It was.
Helped the tie-in, and they didn't qualify enough teams. And so it ended up being who was left, and usually those MAC teams are left over because they don't have many bowl tie-ins, and that's how Ball State came to play in that game. So you may not really have much of a choice. And the Miami Beach Bowl is another bowl which has a terrible time slot. I don't even think you'd want to play in that, even if it wasn't BYU was the opponent. You don't want a rematch, but I think that game's like a day, or is it the 23rd? I think is it
it's right before Christmas
Eve?
Yeah,
like at 2:00 in the afternoon, like on a Monday or so. It's really awful. I mean, it's not a time slot that anyone would travel to and go to. The good thing about the Bitcoin Bowl, it's on a Friday night at 8:00, so it's not one of those day before Christmas 3:00 games. That's going to be terrible. It is the day after Christmas, but most of your fan base is in Florida. At least it'd be an easy trip back.
And we get kind of picky about bowl games now, but to be honest with you, I'd be happy with the bowl victory this year, even if it's against a team that last put an NFL player named Jason Taylor from their program. I mean, Akron.
Oh, there's Charlie Fry, right?
Oh, yeah, Charlie Fry. Yeah, I forgot about that guy.
There you go.
There was some talk this week somewhere in there about Miami possibly, right? What?
That's not going to happen. I don't know where that. I mean, it might have been a projection 4 weeks ago when everyone thought other ACC teams. I don't. There's no way I see that happening because you just don't have the teams. I mean, and some of these projections are assuming teams like North Carolina and other people get eligible, which some of them are. Some of them they play each other head to head. So, but it just doesn't seem like that's feasible. It's really trending towards either a bottom ACC team, which Miami is not going to be, and a bottom team might be NC State if they're 6-6, someone like that. If a team somehow did fall to that bowl, otherwise it probably is going to be some sort of at-large team, like who knows, maybe a MAC team. So,
well, we will take whatever game we get and hopefully show up there with a pretty good fan base and a good product on the field.
Yeah, I don't really know how many more people want to actually go to that stadium and see a football game, just because it's pretty notoriously bad for football. But
it's not the best for baseball, though. You don't get sunburned. That's a bonus.
Supposedly, there's going to be a press conference this week or something about Tampa getting a new baseball stadium. I heard somewhere. So
yeah, I still think they're moving that team.
I don't know. All right, so I guess it's coming to the point of the show where we need to make a pick for next week.
You really
for
mean
this week.
The music's getting ready to start and kick us off.
It is. But since we have Brandon here as well, it's the perfect opportunity to make our picks for Tulsa. So I'll let you start this week, Troy, because I think I've started the last few times, and,
I keep giving an official score. I am so highly inaccurate with the score that, UCF, just like the UConn game, I don't see us losing this game on any level. So, it's going to be kind of a turnover battle. We're going to have some good positions for our offense. They like to wing the ball. We like to, I don't know yet. So, UCF, definitely. I think it's going to be a 28-24, relatively close game because, we're inconsistent, but we're consistently inconsistent. We're the AFib of football teams. So, UCF 28-24.
Okay,
Brandon, how about you? What's your pick?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, nothing would really surprise me at this point in terms of high scoring, low scoring, close, blowout. The only constant is that I do expect UCF to win. Of course, I would have said the same thing with UConn a couple weeks ago. But I'm going to go 31-14.
Okay. All right, and I'm gonna keep it a little bit closer, to be honest with you, just for the heck of it.
Hey, if you want to tie me, you might as well just go Tulsa. We talked about this last week. I told you to take UConn. You said, no, I don't want to take UConn.
If they don't start playing better, I'm going to start, voting against, not rooting against them, but I'm going to start not picking them.
Are we
it's the only way that I could possibly
the Lee
win.
Corso curse?
I don't know. But I'm going to say UCF by 3. So 21-17.
Math major, that's 4 points.
All right, 22-17. I don't know. Oh God, that's funny. Yeah.
Well, that would have the effect of a meltdown, even if you don't lose the game, winning by 3 or 4, depending on the math. That would be quite interesting if that happened. But yeah, I think it's a night game. Maybe they were black, but probably not.
It's going to be beautiful weather. Beautiful weather.
I graduated from the University of Kansas, by the way, and all they teach there is basketball. So my math is bad. That's funny.
Yeah, we've noticed.
Well, at least I was going to say 34-3, but,
And then you just haphazardly said 21-17.
21-17 is more of a
Did Nancy Reagan hire you to advise her husband?
There could be a safety. You never know. Reaganomics. There could be a safety. All righty. Well, that is going to do it for us. Thank you very much, Brandon, for joining us.
You're welcome. Always glad to be on with you guys.
All right. Thank you very much. This has been episode number 16.
Thank you for listening. It's Troy Ondrizek.
And Andrew Phegley.
Charge on.
Charge on to the field. With our spirits we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry.